Many people who watch this channel have an agency. They have an SEO, a search engine optimization, or an answer engine optimization agency. Maybe they have a marketing agency. Maybe they have a Google Ads agency. Maybe they have multiple agencies. Lots of people ask me, how do you evaluate your agency? How do you know if they're doing a good job? Let's look at René Descartes. Descartes was a French philosopher, most famous for a phrase, which I'm not going to say, but he really taught a healthy skepticism. Using his philosophy, let's examine the question of how do you evaluate your agency? Welcome to Marketing Philosophy. I'm your host, Jason McDonald. Marketing Philosophy is a channel in which you use marketing to understand philosophy and philosophy to understand marketing. Today, we're going to look at René Descartes and ask the question of how do you evaluate your agency? Let's dig in. First, let's talk about why as human beings we prefer trust to skepticism. And here we kind of need to look at psychology. The psychology of the human person is kind of what Taylor Swift says, don't we try to love love? What Taylor is saying in her song Opalite is that we tend to believe what we want to believe. And a lot of that is believing that other people have our best interests at heart, that love is real. Spoiler alert, about half of Taylor Swift's songs say, actually not true, #surprise, #white horse. We have a preference to trust people, but this comes at a significant cost, or it can come at a significant cost. Why? Well, take a look at white horse. Deception. People can deceive you. Once you begin to like someone, have a relationship with someone, it becomes more difficult to ask uncomfortable questions. We don't want to sound disrespectful. We don't want to sound distrustful. But in a business relationship, we probably need to be skeptical. And that's where Descartes comes in. We need to be skeptical about everything. And that includes our relationship with our agency. Your first mistake is confusing being nice with getting real metrics from your agency. Don't do that. You want to have a business relationship based on facts. One thing that Descartes proposed, which is weird and interesting, he proposed the idea of an evil demon. This evil demon was an entity so focused on misleading you that it did everything it possibly could. Now that's an extreme kind of deception, but it still is a good way to approach your agency. Ask the question, what if everything they are doing is a lie? What would it look like? Descartes is trying to teach us a kind of disciplined skepticism, starting from a position of total mistrust. Descartes asked the question, how do I know something is true? This question lies at the heart of all good decision making, whether you're a philosophy major or whether you're hiring an SEO agency. Within the domain of marketing, let's look at two pieces of this puzzle. The first piece is the results piece. We have an end result that we want. It could be branding, which is impressions, buzz, people talk about us, or more commonly, results, which are either sales leads or actual sales. That's the end goal of most digital marketing, is some type of sales lead or sale. There are also intermediate results, and these are sort of steps on the path. For instance, with respect to SEO, it's do you rank on Google? If I Google best barber in Bixby, Oklahoma, do I rank? Do I look good? Or if it's social media, it's about engagement, likes, comments, shares. Let's take a look at a Facebook brand I like, for instance, REI. Within their brand, you can see this post about summer, and it has a 50% clearance sale with a link to their e-commerce site. You can see the likes, 37, you can see the comments, 14, and you can see the shares, 3. So you can look at the engagement metrics. Now that's not the end result, is it? The end result would be sales on the e-commerce store. Let's take a look at Best Barber in Bixby, Oklahoma. Again, here you're doing a search and you can ask, well, Ponyboy Barbershop has 268 reviews and it's at the top of the local pack. The rank is an intermediate step to Do you get the click? Do you get the call? Does the person come into the barbershop? When you're looking at your agency, you want to know the end result, sale or sales lead, and you also want to know the intermediate results, which are metrics like rank on Google, engagement on social, etc. The second part of this is what I would call workflow. What steps are being taken by your agency that lead to the intermediate results or ultimately the final results? What do I mean here? Link building. Is your agency doing any link building? Are you getting a report on the links that are being built? What's going on with respect to link building? Link building is part of the workflow to get the intermediate goal of a rank and then the ultimate goal of a sale or sales lead. You want to look at that workflow. Google review strategy. How are you trying to get reviews? What are you doing to encourage customer reviews on Google? The workflow is how you create the intermediate result, reviews on Google, that lead to the final result, sales or sales lead. Ad creative is another type of workflow. You're building and testing ads on Facebook and Instagram. Do ads with puppies perform better? Puppies and children and mommies, puppy and children and mommies on Mother's Day. You're looking at the kind of ad creative and you're trying to figure out what works best, but first you have to create it. So the workflow is what creative is being created. Same with content. Are you blogging? Are you creating YouTube videos? Your agency should be doing these workflow things, and you should get some kind of reporting as to what is actually being done in terms of workflow. You have workflow, you have intermediate goals like rank on Google, engagement on social, and you have end goals, sales or sales leads. A good agency will report on all three of those aspects. Here's the equation, and I put it in the YouTube notes. You want to work backwards from sale or sales lead to inquiry, which could be a phone call, a chat, a text message, or something like that, to the landing page experience, to the click from Google or click from Meta or click from Google LSA. It's kind of an equation that you're working with, and you can establish metrics at every phase, and you want your agency, SEO agency, AEO agency, Google Ads agency to report on each of the steps and the metric of success or the workflow aspects. Here's another litmus test. You want to have a conversation with your agency on metrics and deliverables, metrics and workflow. And when you have that conversation, if it gets kind of weird, if the agency gets kind of angry or they get manipulative, that's a bad sign. If the agency is afraid to talk about metrics or workflow, Houston, you kind of have a problem. Next, let's talk about judgment. You don't want to outsource your judgment. Yes, you want to use an agency for your Google Ads, for your SEO, for your social media, but don't delegate your curiosity and don't delegate the problem of trust but verify, which is something that President Ronald Reagan said a long time ago. You want to ask the agency to help you understand, and this is a habit that the philosopher Descartes would have loved. You want to cultivate a habit of healthy skepticism. Skepticism isn't assuming everyone is dishonest or out to get you. It's refusing to surrender your capacity to think critically, and it's refusing to surrender the right that you have to look for metrics. You want to promote testing against facts. In the end, of course, the question is, will this strategy work? Is it working? The basic question is, how do I know this is true? How do I know that what my agency is doing is leading towards success? And you want to break that down into these constituent parts of the end goal, the intermediate goal, and the workflow. Brainstorm out what some of those metrics would look like. This has been Marketing Philosophy. I hope you learned a little bit about Descartes and his skeptical attitude towards knowledge, and I hope you started to see you can and should measure how your agency is performing. And guess what? We made it through almost the entire video without me saying, I think, therefore I am, which is the subject of another video. Thank you for watching.